All right, folks, it's time to cut to the chase. Mike Burns, Mosin Law Firm. How are you doing today?
Greg, I'm doing great. Great to see you. It looks like you're still up at the camp for another week or so, and
Yeah,
enjoying some cool weather.
Weather dependent. Weather dependent.
Yeah. Well, we got some cool weather down here in the Panhandle of Florida. It's not the only thing that's well, it's still cooling down, but of course, 3M is always heating up with Judge Rogers on the bench.
I know, and I was like, wow, this is the longest probably stretch of time. Mike is co-lead counsel on the largest mass tort ever, 3M. He's been on, I know everybody knows exactly how many shows he's done here, giving us updates, explaining, the process of mass torts. And the story of this case is really turning out to be quite fascinating. The last time he was here on the show, we had 19 veterans try cases, have their cases tried, 13 win, 6 losses, total amount recovered 300 million. Did I get that right?
300 million, that's correct. Yep.
And then 3M, for those that don't know, is a Fortune 500 company, and they have this subsidiary called Aero Technologies that does a non-functioning company. So after losing and getting their butt kicked a bunch of times by Mike and his crew, they decided to file for bankruptcy. A Fortune 500, actually the Fortune 500 in company didn't. Aero Technologies, their little subsidiary, and then Aero Technologies said, "Hey, we're asking you, bankruptcy judge, to give the bankruptcy protections that we get when we file to 3M also, but they don't have to file for bankruptcy." And the Indiana bankruptcy judge, whose name escapes my mind, what's his name?
Well, it skips mine right now, but he did a great job in his ruling. Thankfully, he said, "No, 3M, we're not playing that way. You don't get the protections. You stay over there in the MDL, and Aero gets to come over here, so they don't get you don't get your cake and eat it too." Which 3M at that point had to decide what they're going to do, and you've seen it. The Court of Appeals has lifted the stay, and they're still pursuing the 3M still pursuing the appeal in front of the 11th Circuit. But at the same time, the cases are progressing in front of Judge Rogers down in Pensacola. She has another case with Mark Lanier out of Houston, Texas. Mark, and we'll be working with him, Brian Ailstock, myself, Shelley Reynolds, Chris Seeger, and of course, Jen Hoekstra and the rest of the team, Brad Bradford, when we try that case sometime in February of 2023. So that case is on the docket, and you keep up with the docket as well, Greg. You see the latest thing is the motion for summary judgment on liability for 3M and 3M independently, full liability on the cases. And Judge Rogers is having both the plaintiffs and the defendants, 3M, brief that and have those opposition briefs filed in front of her, and she'll be hearing that argument in the very near future. And at the same time, in the 11th Circuit, as Judge Rogers said, over the summer, she anticipates the 11th Circuit coming back with a ruling on the appeal on the government contractor defense. So a lot of things still going on. Of course, mediation's going on. We can't really talk about that because the gag order that Judge Rogers has put in place in there, where Brian Ailstock, Chris Seeger, and Shelley Hudson for the leadership in 3M for the plaintiffs have been negotiating with the plaintiffs, with the defendants of 3M, and that's still ongoing. And I wish I could give you an update on that, but because of the gag order, Brian and Shelley and Chris are not allowed to discuss what goes on in those mediation meetings. But hopefully things will still keep moving, and we look forward to this going to trial again, or this getting resolved for our soldiers. A little over 230,000 of them right now.
Okay, that was a mouthful, and there are lots of moving parts here, so I just want to break it down for the audience to understand. Okay, number one, we're going to kind of go in reverse order. All right, so the Bankruptcy Court denies the efforts by Aero to have all the litigation stopped, or what we say stayed, due to the bankruptcy, and the bankruptcy judge in Indiana said no go. And then 3M actually took an appeal on that decision, which is now in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals.
Actually, they've taken a couple of appeals, and the main appeal is back from the original trial cases and the bellwether cases. We've discussed those on the show. with the original ones where the plaintiffs won those cases on summary judgment for the government contractor defense, where Judge Rogers said that did not apply. And on that particular appellate issue, we anticipate something coming back. Judge Rogers said she thought it would come back sometime in November, definitely before the end of this year. And that's one of the reasons why she got so involved in trying to resolve the case through mediation. And that's when 3M kind of took the other road and tried to go over to the bankruptcy court and tried to push the cases over there, which you correctly stated that they were unsuccessful in getting the bankruptcy to apply to 3M and to stay the cases in both the MDL and the bankruptcy court.
All right. So from what I understand that you're saying, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals has two main issues that are up on appeal on different cases, but it's the same court that's going to address both of these issues: the government contractor defense and then the bankruptcy denial from the Indiana court.
Well, the Indiana court, the appellate court for the Indiana court is the district court.
The third is
That's
the
correct.
third, yeah.
Third district court, correct. Not the 11th. So
Okay.
the bankruptcy court appeals to the district court in that particular state, and that's the Southern District of Indiana.
Okay, all right. So it's not going to be the same appellate court. So there you have that appeal, which is just solely whether 3M would get bankruptcy protection. In other words, all the cases would stop, then they go into bankruptcy proceedings, and then they try to figure out a way to settle the case in the bankruptcy court, which would probably not produce as fair a result for the veterans as if the cases were settled outside of the bankruptcy court.
I agree with you, Greg. I agree with you.
Okay, so even if it does end up in bankruptcy, it's not like that's the end of it. It's just a completely different animal in context of getting cases on a large scale settled.
You're exactly right. It's like playing in Boston with the Green Monster or Yankee Stadium. You're going to play in one ballpark, either here or over there. You're going to play. It's going to play out.
And a lot of people, I think, were like getting hearing the news about the bankruptcy, but the government contractor defense, which is in front of the 11th Circuit Court of Appeal, if the 11th Circuit says they get the government contractor defense, that's the end of it. That's the end of everything.
It could be. It could be. Plaintiffs could appeal that decision, and it's just like if 3M loses on that decision, their likelihood would be that they would try to appeal that decision to the Supreme Court, which the Supreme Court has not decided a government contractor case to my knowledge. And so maybe the Supreme Court would take a look at it. But there's still plenty of legal playing out to do on top of what's going on in the trial court, which is in front of Judge Rogers and all the cases that she has in front of her, the 232,000+ cases that she has in front of her.
Okay, and so then the other part of what you updated us on, mediation, gag order. So in mediation, it's actually the judge entered an order saying you have to mediate, you have to bring representatives. She put that in writing so that, that's public knowledge.
Right.
And then what I saw was after the first 2-week session, and this took place after the bankruptcy nonsense was, went nowhere. She says, all right, we're all mediating now. Then I saw another order after that where she said, it looks like there was progress. I'm going to order mediation again.
She did. And that mediation occurred. That mediation was supposed to be scheduled within 14 days of that particular order. And because there's a gag order, nobody can discuss what occurs at that particular meeting and the way the process is still playing out.
Can you tell the audience whether the trial judge is going to have a meeting with the attorneys to get the update or on the mediation? And how does that, whatever I don't want to put any pressure on you.
I can't say anything. I would assume that Judge Rogers will meets and communicates with both Randy Ellis, who is the special master, and she communicates with both sides. But I don't have any, because of the gag order, I'm not privy to that information and what's going on. And that
Okay.
the only people that are the three that I mentioned.
All right, and then the last part of this update is essentially that all the cases, the 230,000 cases, are now back on track. They are moving forward, and the first one that's set for trial is in February with the regular cast of characters plus Mark Lanier.
That's correct. And as you've seen on the different orders, Judge Rogers has kept moving forward with waves 1, 2, 3, and 4, where she's waiving approximately 500 cases at a time, that she's having the plaintiffs and defendants prepare for trial, expert depositions, plaintiffs' depositions, spouses' depositions, and those cases are moving forward. And she also has motions on rule of law and venue, choice of venue, as well as other motions, Dahlberg motions, all those different motions that you had with the first group of bellwether cases. She is still moving forward with those, and she's going to decide those as the trial court. And you would anticipate at some point that she would remand cases to the district courts to try those cases and move forward with those cases.
Yeah, well, I gotta say, if 3M's attorneys don't know Mark Lanier, boy, they're in for something. Yeah, I think I'm gonna fly there just to watch. That guy makes me cry when he talks.
Mark's an excellent trial lawyer and well respected on the plaintiff's bar as well as the defense bar. And I think you follow these trials really closely. And there's been some outstanding lawyers on both sides, but the plaintiff's lawyers, whether it be Brad Bradford, Brian Ailstock, Tom Pirtle, Tom Cartmel, Shelley Hudson, and the list goes on and on and on. Dave Buchanan have done an outstanding job for the soldiers that the plaintiffs committee represents, and it's been just an absolute pleasure to represent these brave men and women who've served our country and wore these combat arm earplugs, as well as has been very enjoying as a lawyer to watch these high-skilled lawyers go in and match their talents against 3M and be successful.
Folks, that's the end of this episode of Cut to the Chase. Mike, thank you for the update. I know there are a lot of, the majority of my audience, I think, is dying to hear this update. So I got to go and get this up and edit it and get this little light out of the picture. I don't know what's going on. But good to see you, and I'm glad you're doing well. And we'll come back at the next big update, hopefully in a month or so.
Sounds good. Great. Take care.
All right.
Be safe.
Be well. Bye-bye.